Hello and welcome to Nerdgasm. Now, it is not your imagination. I am not Jerry Harr, or I could say that I am. Today is the first installment of the episode, which will run only 90 minutes. And why 90 minutes? Because 2 hours is way too long to be plugged into your internet terminal watching this damn program. You got other things to do. So we're going to get all the content of a 2-hour show, but in 90 minutes. I'm Dave Campfield. I'm a filmmaker, actor, and to my left is Peppercorn Montgomery, who is a actor, filmmaker, and James Lipton impersonator.
Tonight we have with us an actor who has changed the world of cinema, Mr. David Campfield.
Thanks, brother. And to my right, I picked up a hitchhiker along the way to fill the spot of Jerry Harr, and tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm a cat.
She's not really a cat.
Shh, play along.
I'm an actor and I'm acting like a cat.
That's right. Okay. So this is like an acting class. We're all actors here. Like you ever have those classes where it's like you're in the middle of the room, and now you, Peppercorn, are a tree, and you, Heather, are a cat. This is Heather. Heather was our news girl from last week. Now the sad truth is that Jerry Harr was fired last week for indecent exposure. He's not allowed to come back to this program. He took his shirt off at someone's urging. Of course, I took my shirt off as well, but it wasn't indecent. So we're going to be talking about a number of things in this program. We're going to have a guest. The director of Found, an amazing indie film, will be on with us a little bit later on. And we also have a guessing game that I would like to start this show off with. So I'm going to contact Matt in the control room. No, our technical director isn't a well-hung Filipino man. He's nothing of the sort. Jerry Harr every single time. Our technical director is this. He's a fat woman. He's a 3-foot tattoo imitator. No, our technical director is a guy named Matt. And Matt right now, I believe, is going to be throwing up our guessing contest for this week. Okay, so can you tell us, remember people in the chat room right now, who we are looking at? And throughout the show, I'm going to, you might guess it right away, but this, I believe, this photograph was circa 1990. And it is a young actor in a Paula Abdul video. And let's see how well you guys are in the live chat figuring this out.
You mean it's not Paula Abdul herself?
No.
Isn't that the kid from the Munsters TV show?
I would have guessed that from the
Yeah.
Monsters TV show.
Of course
That
not.
alfalfa, but the year was off.
Right, yeah. So you guys are both wrong.
Is it the kid
Yeah.
from Stand By Me?
No, we're just going to let the people in the chat room actively figure out who it is. But let's just say
Is
more
it
clues.
David Campfield?
I wish I was in a Paul Abdul video when I was like 11 years old. What are you talking about?
Well, it was the goal of all children in the 1990s to be in a Paula Abdul
Oh
video.
my God, yeah, all of us in
Yes.
school were like enamored by her. So, we are going to be talking about, starting off the bat. Okay, Cutie Kin says no clue who that is. Well, you might figure it out.
Is it Justin Bieber?
No, people stop.
Justin,
We can't.
well, was
we can't
he alive
just. We
in
can't just.
1990?
That's a good point. We can't just
have
throw
to be
guesses this
conceived.
entire show. We got way too much to talk about. Now, the first thing I would like to talk about was the suggesting of Peppercorn, and we have my feature film, Caesar and Otto's Deadly Xmas, which is coming out to DVD in November. It was accepted into the Terror Film Festival in Philadelphia, which I'm looking forward to. So on the 19th of October, I will be down there in Philadelphia, and you better as well be too, because you're about to see the most orgasmic film experience of your life.
Well, don't oversell it.
I think I might be doing that. So Matt, in the control room, can we put the promo up for Caesar and Otto's Deadly Xmas?
Please don't kill me.
Every time the holiday season comes around, so does my urge to kill.
Caesar, do you think you can loosen up a little bit? Have a little bit of fun with the lines?
Don't tell me to say the lines. It sickens me.
So you got a roll for me?
What about playing Santa Claus?
You know about Santa Claus, boy? He brings presents to them that's been good, but to them that's been bad. You know what he does?
There's this girl, Allison Platt, and I just can't get her out of my head.
This is just Mommy's friend Otto.
Nice to meet you, Bobby.
Oh.
Caesar, I know what I gotta do. I gotta play Santa Claus.
Well, that is just sad. All right, so how much should we get paid here?
Oh, Demian,
Yeah.
Who was that?
just our janitor.
Some people find him a bit strange.
He was diagnosed with a anti-Semitic dissociative disorder.
Caesar and Otto. Who would you kill?
I'm not armed. I just had it reattached.
Sacrifice is sacred.
That sounds a bit extreme.
He's also afraid of Santa Claus.
Have yourself a very Merry Christmas.
Technically, it's called Christmas, Dr. Allen.
Sorry, Heather. There won't be nudity in this film.
Oh, thank God.
So that is the trailer for Caesar and Otto's Deadly Xmas. That is the trilogy of it is a trilogy of comedy horror films that was inspired by old Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein and The Invisible Man, and it was the kind of film that I grew up with, and it was the kind of film that I wanted to explore. So we're nominated for 4 awards down in Philadelphia. Myself, my producer, we're going to be there, and maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it, or whatever. But it's something, you know. Film is my passion. Film is my
Now, you
love.
said this is the third in the trilogy? Or
That's
is
right,
this... yeah. Okay, well, what were the other two?
Caesar and Otto's Deadly Xmas, and the original one was called, it's just Caesar and Otto. And they're micro-budget films. What happened was I made a debut film that had, like, we put a lot of money, we put a lot of time in it, but ultimately it didn't stand out in the marketplace, despite the fact it got some recognition. So what I did with this one was I wanted to do something that was so different than everything else that's being released that you could stand out, despite the fact this is a minimalist, this is a tiny, tiny budget of a film we have here. And it matches my own comic sensibilities, and I play with characters. There's nothing like me. But for whatever reason, I could just like, whatever reason, I could just go in and out of this character.
I like his accent.
It's not really an accent, it's just a way of being.
That's very exciting. So you told us you got nominated for 4 awards at the Terra Film Fest, right? What were the awards, the categories?
The categories were Best Picture, Best Screenplay, they gave it video, cinematography, and why am I forgetting my nominations? But it doesn't matter, because it's getting boring.
It's
just
just an
stuff
honor
like
to be
that.
nominated in any way.
Yeah, that's right. You know?
Yes.
It's fine.
Now, if people wanted to, who can't make it to Philadelphia, like our fans out in California,
Like pretty much every single person watching this program right now.
except for those of you in Philadelphia,
Right.
Where can they hope to see the film soon?
I think they're doing a push to Blockbuster. Actually, do you know there's some remaining Blockbuster videos still in this country? Blockbuster Video, Family Video. It's going to be on Amazon, Amazon Instant, and it's going to be on video on demand in up to 50 million homes starting in December. So,
Sweet.
But you got to look for it. You
Just in
gotta go
time for
through it.
Christmas.
That's exactly the idea.
It's brilliant marketing.
Are you really afraid of Santa Claus?
I might be. It might be based on traumatic real life experiences.
So it'll be weird when Jerry comes in, if he ever gets rehired, dressed
Right.
as Santa Claus.
Right.
Especially his version of Santa Claus actually would be terrifying.
Oh my God! Well, that
He'd be
could be.
shirtless.
It'd be like Santa Claus in a wrestling singlet and lots of tattoos and a little overly affectionate. To sum up Jerry Horror in a sentence.
So we have a bunch of interesting nerd news stories happening this week. Well, this afternoon I read an article on Yahoo about Daniel Day-Lewis. There's a rumor that Daniel Day-Lewis is possibly being considered for Star Wars Episode 7. And I read between the lines, which apparently Yahoo did not. Which said that he was having lunch with George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy. George Lucas, at this point, being tangentially involved in the series, and Kathleen Kennedy being producer. Here's my point. Can a guy just have lunch with other people without it being him, without it meaning something deeper? This is Daniel Day-Lewis we're talking about. He
Not
could
in
have been
Hollywood.
right.
Yeah.
Not lunch. I mean, if it was dinner or breakfast or something, but lunch?
They could be talking about anything. Like how's the shoemaking going in Ireland, Daniel? I'm glad
That's
that you're
true.
in town.
But to be honest, if you're a filmmaker, you should always consider Daniel Day-Lewis for any film you're making.
Right.
Whether he'll do it, that's
Right.
a whole nother story. If he can pull himself away from his recluse life, but
yeah. You know that like Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't exactly live the wild party life. He lives in Ireland with his wife and his kids, and he works on shoes when he's not working on movies. And he's very
I was
selective.
wondering why he'd know about the shoemaking in Ireland.
yeah.
It wasn't just some random aside. It's actually what he does.
He's big into cobbling,
Ah.
which is a sentence I don't get to use often.
We've been waiting to pull that one out.
Yes.
So, and also to the greater point, George Lucas is not directing this film. He doesn't really have any involvement. So
I'm sure he'll get some executive producer credit or something that will net him a check.
yeah.
But he doesn't have any direct creative input. I'm sure they'll run things by him just so that we can say it online that we ran this, George Lucas loves this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well,
But,
Lucas is probably going to become what happened to Gene Roddenberry at the end of the Star Trek movies. By the end of it, by the time that they were up to Star Trek 6, Nicholas Meyer basically just nodded his head to Gene Roddenberry and said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do what you're saying," and then he never did it.
Yeah.
You know, that might be Lucas at this
Well,
point.
after those of you who are Star Trek fans remember Star Trek the Motion Picture. Pretty much after that one, they stopped listening to Gene Roddenberry almost completely. Gene Roddenberry was a huge creative force behind that one. He loved 2001, and he wanted a 2001 style Star Trek movie. And you got Star Trek the Motion Picture.
I never even put two and two together. Like
Yeah.
2001 and Star Trek the Motion Picture, you know all about this, Heather, right?
Sure.
Right. She doesn't.
So I love movies so much.
2001 was really, I did, you know, Star Trek the Motion Picture did have the pacing of that kind of
Yes,
film, where it just is like, everything was moving in slow motion. Sulu,
It's very slow to
go,
develop.
even warp speed was slow. Can you go to warp speed, Sulu? Aye.
And it,
Warp speed was just normal mode.
Yes.
yeah, and it was all about, when you call it, the existential crisis of man's place in the ever-expanding universe, and, you know, questions of philosophy and all these things that are always been in the Star Trek universe that have made it great through the years, except this was there's a segment of it where it's like 6 minutes where they just fly by showing you the Enterprise.
But didn't you love the close-up of Shatner in those like 6 minutes?
Yes, it's a lot of Shatner reaction shots, which God love it. If you love Shatner, it's Shatner porn. And it's
I
Enterprise
could see
porn.
this then. Oh,
Hey, I got
Shatner's
something.
Some very
reactions are
tight
just amazing
clothing.
all the time.
I got something to say to Cutie Kins. Heather is not clueless. Heather is very intelligent, but you know, we're talking Star Trek.
Yeah, that's more my.
Yeah, yes, you know, you can't blame her, man.
Yes. We'll let her pick the topic next.
I would like to go into this week's Nerdgasm News Girl. Last week, this was the one that was our news girl, and she did such an amazing job that we brought her on the program this week as co-host. So, to Matt in the control room, let's roll this week's Nerdgasm News.
Like, if I were born in 1900, I would be like the hottest thing. But I'm born in 86, so. Hi, I'm Karen, and here is this week's Nerdgasm News. This is the nerdiest thing in my room. It's a computer I built in 2009, so don't judge its components right now, because in 2009, this was gangsta. A John Constantine TV show is in development at NBC, reports Deadline. The character is largely known for the infamous 2005 feature film headlined by Keanu Reeves. But Constantine was originally created by Alan Moore in 1985. I don't want any footage of you testing me about my nerdiness. This is Jordy. I was just like, I want to be as cute as Diana Troy. She was my favorite. I always wanted to be her. I wanted to wear the jumpsuit.
You don't have the jumpsuit in the closet?
I think my friends made me donate all of my jumpsuits because they're inappropriate to wear in public. Avengers writer and director Joss Whedon has some harsh words for his own movie. He calls the plot of the film haphazard in a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly. There was haphazardness in the way the Avengers comes together, not just the people, but the scenes. Whedon is currently in production for the Avengers sequel, The Age of Ultron.
Do you know who's playing Ultron?
I thought you were not going to test me about this stuff.
Where'd you get that Star Wars shirt?
All I know is it's awesome. I got someone to kind of translate one of them. It's in the boob area, and they said something about like holograms.
Your boobs are holograms?
I hope that they are actually objects in 3D world with mass. You tested me about stuff I don't like. On the same night, Marvel launched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. On the same night Marvel launched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's been revealed that DC is making another big step in TV, with Commissioner Gordon getting his own live-action series, reveals Deadline. The Warner Brothers TV-produced series called Gotham will air on Fox and will focus on a young detective, James Gordon, and the villains that made Gotham famous. Gotham will take place before Gordon meets Batman, who will not be a part of the series.
This is a plastic couch.
Yeah, I would call it vinyl. It's kind of like slots, but no money. That's as exciting as it's gonna get. So we're building ambulance. Who's Karen?
What's your favorite game?
What do you mean, favorite game ever for any console? That's not a fair question.
Favorite game for this system?
This, in Super Mario Land, the original. I know where all the secret coins are. To the camera! And that's this week's Nerdgasm News.
Okay,
That's
well,
where you speak.
so now, Peppercorn, you recognize that toy set there?
That toy, I recognize the Plinko game, which I can't say I've seen in probably 30 years. By the way, that basement seems like heaven.
Seems
Just
like every
toys
15-year-old
and-
boy's dream.
Yes, toys,
Specifically because there's a
Plinko.
girl in it.
Yes, somehow we got a girl to our dungeon. It's fantastic.
That's her dungeon, man.
I know, which is even stranger.
Well, she was telling me that was all her brother's stuff, and then she inherited all her brother's stuff, and so she played with it. So she was much more like the kind of a tomboy, you know. So, we have 3 news stories to run down, you know.
What about comic books? I could like talk about it now.
Yeah, that's right. So what is everybody's feeling on Constantine?
I read some
Okay,
of
we're
the
gonna decide
comics.
who's gonna go first. You two are gonna arm
Ladies
wrestle.
first.
Okay.
Okay. I've read some of the comics, so it's what, a TV show? It's going to be now?
It's going to it's a TV show, sort of
And
following the footsteps of
I
that.
heard them say Keanu Reeves
Right.
is going
Not
to
in
be.
the TV show. He was in the movie version.
Oh, there was a movie? I didn't know about
There was a
this.
movie version about 6 or 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 2005. It was a 2005 movie.
It was pretty much a bomb. I had actually seen it in the movie theater. I didn't hate it. I thought there was a couple really good things in it. I thought it was pretty entertaining. It's not in line with the comic books at all, though, as a lot of comic book movies aren't, unfortunately.
Well, they are nowadays. Now we're in the age of like comics.
Yeah, well, the Marvel movies have been a little bit more true to the comics, I think. But a lot of comic book movies still, especially from the ones from the DC camp, always seem to be sort of miss the point.
Marvel, like in every single one, Stan Lee always makes an appearance. So if
Yeah.
he's working that closely that he's going to be in the movies, he's probably got to say in like, yo, this is not how it happened. Like, please
That's
don't
true.
do this.
They can definitely. I mean, that's an amazing thing that they can do with the Marvel universe, and it's been all the movies. Is that although taking the X-Men movie, it's a perfect example, which started this whole roller coaster, or Spider-Man really started it. It's not exactly the story of how the X-Men got together, but they can turn to Stan Lee and be like, is this in the spirit of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's something, you can't ask the creators of Superman, hey, was this your vision? Because they have long since expired. I mean, that comics, and it's the same with Batman, too. So you kind of have to shoot and miss sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that Stan Lee is so involved. Sometimes his cameos are a little just campy, but it's a fantastic tip of the hat to the man who brought all those great characters to us.
I fully believe that Stan Lee just wants to be Mr. Fantastic so bad.
Well, I think we all want to be Mr. Fantastic. Well,
He is truly fantastic.
yes. Stan Lee is definitely, yeah.
Mr. Fantastic, I mean. Stan Lee's all right, but
Stan Lee's Mr. All Right.
The other news story was the Avengers was a number 3 story. And I personally felt that I am not the same level of Josh Whedon lover that a lot of people are, where Whedon could do no wrong. I had issues with the Avengers in comparison to a lot of other comic book movies. I thought a lot of comic book movies are pretty great. I mean, or are structured better. You know, the original Iron Man, and you know, I'm thinking about even though it's DC, Batman Begins, and a lot of these origin stories have really lucid through lines. And what I found with Avengers was like it's about the cube. I mean, it's almost like the first draft of Star Wars was about the cube, and there's like so many different elements. And I think ultimately what people were responding to was that they got to see their favorite superheroes fight. And for me, that didn't make it as strong of a film as a lot of the other ones. I thought it was good, you know, I'd recommend it, but it's not my favorite comic book movie. So just the fact that Whedon acknowledged that is really, you know, to me, makes me even more excited. You know, plus you get James Spader as Ultron. How did you feel about like the Avengers as a screenplay, as a motion picture?
As a screenplay, I mean, the Avengers is fan service in a lot of ways. I think it was as well done as you could take all of these elements and bring them together. But you break it up and there's certain things. I mean, you go to see that movie for the Hulk fighting Thor. I mean, that was worth the ticket price alone. You get to see these characters interacting and stuff like this. But there's issues with the script. I mean, it's a very big script, and it's a lot of haphazard is probably the best wording I could think to use it. There's a lot of potential in it to build and explore, as we see in Iron Man 3 and in the other movies, as the characters get to have their own time. And then the idea of coming back from for the movie Age of Ultron is very exciting. And the fact that Joss Whedon, I think, you know, listen, Joss Whedon wasn't a world beater type director. He didn't have the clout of Spielberg's or even a J.J. Abrams. So there was a certain amount of studio probably push, and he had to, you know, you have to get this, and this in it. I think in the next movie, now that he's shown that he can bring a world beater of a movie out, I mean, find another Joss Whedon project or movie that comes anywhere near the Avengers in success, and you won't find anything. But I think it'll be really interesting to see with the script and how Age of Ultron goes. I think you might get a more character-driven, a more tightly written script, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what Marvel does. I haven't loved all the movies, but I've loved this whole Marvel project. It's an amazing scope of filmmaking. I'm totally impressed by it, and clearly the people at DC are totally obsessed with it.
Quickly speaking, do you guys have any thoughts on the Commissioner Gordon TV show?
I do.
What's up?
Well, I personally don't like Batman,
Right.
but
You need to go.
personally, I have reasons for it. I could argue with this all day, but we don't have time.
It was when she was a child, there was this guy in a Batman suit. Well, go on.
No, that's understandable.
But I do believe that, like, it's just Commissioner Gordon. Like, who really cares? I mean, while I don't like Batman, I do understand there are a lot of people who really do like Batman.
Yeah.
And why this feels like there's no incentive to watch it. It's
Of course
just basically
isn't it?
a crime movie. Commissioner Gordon is not a superhero. A crime TV show. He's not a superhero. He's just going to be a detective. I feel like people are going to. It's not going to do that great because there's no Batman.
Commissioner Gordon has an iron pelvis. He could tear up the dance floor like nobody else. Now, that being said, this show is clearly made for one reason. It's called pandering to the audience because it's like they can't afford Batman. Who can they afford? Well, there might be something that we can tie into Batman. It's all marketing. Now, it's not to say that they can't do a good program, but no one's really keen on original ideas because who's going to tune into something that you haven't seen before when you can tune into something you have seen before with something familiar?
It's a built-in audience.
Right. So they can just tie into Batman just enough. It's got enough of this rumbling from a fan base. So it's all a marketing thing. It's a way of doing Batman without having to spend a lot of money on the expense of Batman.
I mean, unless you have the villains there.
Right. And they will. They'll have like Penguin, which is...
If it was after when Batgirl started to kind of become Batgirl, maybe it would have been interesting seeing like that, but there's nothing because before Batman...
They're just going to like villains like the Penguin, and he's just going to be like a guy in a tuxedo. Right. You know, all the economic villains, you know, they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept, I think, for like if it was a 10-part miniseries on HBO, I think it would be fantastic. And they can make it as gritty as possible. But on a TV, it just sounds like a police procedural. And they've also tried this before to a certain degree with Birds of Prey, where it's like in the Batman universe, but not Batman. And you get people out early, but I just don't think you're going to hook the audience if you keep telling them, no, Batman's never showing up.
What did the chat room say? You're mentioning a great actor for the film here.
I believe we were talking about Iron Man.
Oh, son of a bitch! What makes him such a great actor for the part is the fact that he actually knows the comics.
Wait, who are we talking about there? Because Robert Downey Jr. That was the last thing I was paying attention to. I'm sorry. Robert Downey Jr. actually doesn't like comics.
If that's indeed,
about.
Vixen, what you were talking about, if not, we sincerely apologize because we got sidetracked with all the cameras and the lights and stuff like that. So it is that time of this program where we're going to go into our under the radar reviews. Now, Under the Radar is our take on films that are much less high profile than movies like Avengers and the ones that we just talked about.
Right.
So, this week we have three specific, very interesting choices. Heather, I'd like to start with you. If we can throw the preview up for the movie being Flynn. Mountain Control Room. I am getting a thumbs up.
Don't worry, you're in the hands of a master storyteller. America has produced only 3 classic writers: Mark Twain, J.D. Salinger, and me. I'm Jonathan Flynn. Everything I write is a masterpiece, and soon, very soon, I shall be known.
This isn't my father's story. Well, it is, but he's not telling it. I am. All my life, my father has been manifest as an absence.
I think I want to be a writer. Dad's a writer, right? Ha!
You know where that letter was written from?
Prison.
My mom's dead, and my dad I haven't heard from in 18 years. He passed forged checks. I don't know that I ever want to see him again.
At this point of the story, I am an upstanding citizen of these United States. I had a disagreement with my scum-sucking landlord. Shut up! What I am is an artist.
Some part of me knew he would show up someday.
So what makes you want to work with the homeless?
We catch him on the way down. Next stop, the morgue.
If I stayed in one place long enough, he would find me.
I'd like a room for the evening.
I was raised up.
Pleasure to see you, Nicholas, aside from the circumstances.
I'm doing the same thing here as you are, gathering material.
This is my life.
Life is gathering material.
Of course, writers, especially poets, are particularly prone to madness.
You are me. I made you. I'm not you. Are me. I am not you.
Do you think I'm my father?
I think you need to get some help.
From one writer to another. I don't care how good a writer you are, you can't kill someone with words.
Cheerful stuff.
No one will ever read it.
I just did.
We were put on this earth to help other people, Nicholas. It's a wonderful life. It's a masterpiece.
Well, if we're back, that's really interesting because my earpiece just cut out and now I'm like a newsman without his teleprompter. I'm gonna have a panic attack. So anyway, this movie was Heather's Under the Radar pick. And so could you tell us why you chose this film as your selection this week and what you thought of it?
It was, I used to go to movies like every Tuesday or whatever with a friend, and we'd see whatever obscure movie was there. And this was one of them, and it just, I fell so much in love with it because it wasn't just a feel-good movie. It like made you think, and it made you sad, and you really had to like, you know, deal with your feelings during it. And I love, even if with how sad it is, how it ends, which was absolutely beautiful. And the actor in it, the main guy, not Flynn, I'm blanking on his name because it's been so long since I've seen it, but he was also the little kid in Little Miss Sunshine. And I
he wasn't a little kid, he was the older brother.
Yeah, he was the older brother. But he was still like...
He was so
much younger.
Kid.
And
He got a start in a movie called LIE, which was shot out right, and it was about where I live, Exit 52 on the Long Island Expressway, and all the sodomy that takes place.
Oh, word.
So that was his start, you know.
It was the Dave Campfield story.
No, it wasn't. Okay. Yeah. So now, how many on a scale of 1 to 4 cats? What do you give it?
I don't know. I would give it like 3.5 cats, I guess. I really liked it, but it's a sad movie. It's gonna make you sad. The ending is gonna make you a happy kind of sad.
Yeah, it's definitely mixed emotions, bittersweet, right?
Yeah,
bittersweet.
I don't want to tell you the ending,
make
but
you very
I mean,
confused.
it's basically a kid who's afraid of turning into his father, so much so that he winds up turning into his father, and then once he's able to stop, take a step back and live his life, becomes the complete opposite of his father.
Yeah, no, it is a great film. De Niro has not seemed this pathetic as a character since The King of Comedy. You know, so it's probably one of the better performances I've seen from him, because a lot of times he's in a film, you know, his motivation is how much money did I get? You know, because my agent's got to get a piece of it. I got the taxes. I got the room in New York. You know, so this is like one particular time where I think he wasn't thinking about the overhead. He was thinking about how good of a performance, you know, is this, and it's very much under the radar. It's too bad. So how about your under the radar pick for this particular movie?
All right, for my under the radar pick, and I don't believe we have the trailer. Sorry, slight snafu. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Is actually which camera should I hold it to? This one right here. I'm staying put. All right. Oh, that's right. You people can't hear what's going on the monitor. It's a movie called Amazon Women on the Moon, and it's a comedy from John Landis with an amazingly huge cast. It was made back in the 80s when you could make R-rated comedies about other people besides teenagers. It's a, anyway, it's got an it's an amazingly huge cast of celebrities from that time period. And what it essentially is a spoof of, and it makes it a little dated, but it's a spoof of late night television, sort of that, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning late night movie, which is the central piece, which is called Amazon Women on the Moon. And the joke in the film is, you know, they're going to present it without commercial interruptions, and yet all it is commercial interruptions throughout the film. And they do a lot of really funny and cute segments. Some of them just bomb or fall flat on their face. But there are some great little bits in here, like there's one called Son of the Invisible Man, where Ed Begley Jr. plays the son of the Invisible Man. He believes that he has recreated his father's formula, and he takes it, and he goes out in the world, but it doesn't work. So he's just this guy running around naked, and all of the people in the town have just basically been used to this, so they help pretend that they can't see him, and the whole time, in the end, he gets dragged off to the insane asylum. Ed Begley Jr. is hysterical in it.
I think there's a lot of star actors in there. You got Andrew Dice Clay, and you know the guy who played Jimmy Olsen. Not that exactly he's a star or anything like that, but you have a lot.
But there's
of cameos.
yeah, I mean, especially for the '80s, you have Steve Guttenberg. We all love Steve Guttenberg. Arsenio Hall. Remember when he was on Top of the World? Howard Hessman.
Relevant, I think the word was.
Kelly Preston makes an appearance. Griffin Dunn, another, who's that guy from the 80s. Carrie Fisher is in it. Rosanna Arquette. Steve Allen. B.B. King makes and David Alan Grier. For those of you who know David Alan Grier, he's a fantastic comedic actor. Does this amazing bit. It's this segment. It's called, you know, Africans Without Soul, or Black People Without Soul. And the whole is B.B. King introduces the segment, and it's to get help for, you know, and he's this singer, but he sings all these like old peppy standards and stuff, like Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog and stuff, but he commits completely to it with this giant smile on his face that just cracks you up.
I mean, so much of the movie is great, and it's the sequel to the Kentucky Fried Movie. And Kentucky Fried Movie was the original movie of the guys who did Airplane. Right. And this is sort of following in their footsteps, you know, in a way, and they're taking it another 5 steps forward with it. And Son of the Invisible Man is hilarious. It's a great parody. Now I'd like to get into my under the radar pick. Now my under the radar pick is a film, because I do a lot of traveling in the film festival circuit. So I see a lot of different indie films, especially indie horror. and I had come across the film Found at Elvira's Horror Hunt. And we were up for Best Picture. It was Found, myself, and I think a movie called The Wickeds, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, oh, this film better suck. And I saw it, and it really blew me away. It was a film that only had a marginally bigger budget than my own, and I'm proud that it won Best Picture because, you know, whereas mine was a silly comedy horror, they had a dramatic horror film, which I compared to, like, if Kubrick and Terrence Malick made a no-budget horror film, this is what they would do. So I'd love to play the promo for this piece.
My brother keeps a human head in his closet. At one point, it had thoughts and feelings, and it kissed somebody it loved. Now it's just a bloody head in a bowling ball bag. I hope I don't end up that way.
Do you want to be the kid that gets picked on? Or the kid that gets in trouble?
What if I hit Marcus back? What if it doesn't hurt him any?
Don't worry about Marcus. You shouldn't worry about anything.
You didn't have to do what you did, Marty. Kids get picked on. I'm sorry it happens, but it's not an excuse to attack someone.
You want to see something really scary?
Listen to me. Something is going to happen tonight. It's going to change everything. And I need you to stay out of the way.
Why?
Because I don't want to hurt you.
My life is starting to feel like a horror movie. And you know how they end.
We're back, and that was a promo for Scott Schirmer's horror film, Found. And we're fortunate to have Scott joining us today for Nerdgasm via Skype. Should be a video feed. Okay, and Scott is here. So Scott,
I'm here.
How many damn film festivals have you been on already? It's enough, man. I mean, how many people have to compliment you before you finally decide you've had enough?
Well, I've had enough myself, honestly. Not that I wouldn't say no to more, but I'm so grateful for what we've been able to achieve so far that, you know, I'm happy. We can stop anytime. But thanks for having me on, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, like, you really left an impression on me when we met at Elvira's Horror Hunt, you know, back last year, and your film is continuing to do the festival run. How many festivals do you think you've been in right now?
I think about 40.
40 film festivals. Caesar not a Zilly Xmas, I'm like 10, that's it, I'm done. You got 40. That's pretty phenomenal. And now I remember you saying that it was adapted from a book. A lot of times when it was like, the book was not published, right? It was sort of like a friend's book?
It was a self-published book, and I work at the company that self-published it. So I do video marketing for that company, and I always need book covers to use in the promotional materials. And his was a black, stark-looking cover with huge block letters and a skull on it, which was so different from all the self-help and inspirational stuff we usually publish that it stood out, and I noticed it. Took it home to Galley, read it, fell in love with it, looked him up on the internet, called him. He said yes. Awesome.
And how is your screenplay? Did you adapt the screenplay, or was that someone else who did?
Todd and I both adapted the screenplay together, and I would say just about 90-something% of it is right out of the book. It's really faithful.
Mm. And so do you think, I mean, if this film, the hope would be, you know, this film gets recognition because, you know, we fight an uphill battle. We're indie filmmakers. We fight an uphill battle that a lot of people, because they haven't heard of us, don't want to take a chance on us. And I've seen your film more than once. We traded movies, and I've shown a couple of friends, this film because I think it has replay value and it's got this, and a lot of it, some of it is due to the score as well and your choice of score. So it's not like I'm just going to say it's the score, but like your integration of the score with the film that blows me away. And even though it's such a slow burn, you manage to keep this constant sense of tension and this ominous nature through the entire thing, sometimes without much even happening, which is extraordinarily admirable. It goes back to also to Hitchcock when you look at a lot of Psycho. There's not a lot happening a lot of time. What would you say your inspiration for the style of this film is derived from as a director?
Oh, it's a tough question because I like reading what other people say the film reminds them of, and because I wasn't really thinking about anything while we were doing it, except that I really wanted, since it's all indoors, I wanted to try and make it as cinematic as possible. So I wanted really, really close-up shots and really wide as much as possible. And that kind of goes back to Sergio Leone's style of extreme close-ups and big vistas. I like that. That's where cinema is at, I think, in that juxtaposition. But other than just keeping that in mind while we were filming, I wasn't really consciously...
You weren't looking for it, you were just kind of following your instincts. Yeah,
but when other people have said there's some Spielberg stuff in there, sure, I can't deny that because I grew up on all the Spielberg movies. Right. If in Star Wars too, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were my entire childhood, so they have.
Yeah, you and I believe we're contemporaries, so we have like the same influences, and it obviously affected us in different ways. Now you are disturbed as hell, by the way, because there are things in this film. I literally watched people in the audience leave at like 2 or 3 specific points. It's like I literally saw a migration of like 5 people at one point, 5 people at another point. It was a big theater. And I understand why, but wow. All I'll tell the audience, because I want to intrigue you, is really, Scott, that really, and you got away with it because I think the stuff I'm referring to is the movie within a movie. Yeah. So it's not like this was part of the narrative. This was a kid reacting to some of the most unbelievable violence perpetrated to a dead body, violation, and. What is I'm not faulting you, but what would you say the justification? Because I love the way it was shot. You had the reflection on the kid's eyes, on your protagonist's eyes. What would you say the justification for having something so horrific and horrible? You know exactly what I'm talking about, Scott.
Well, first it's just my gut. I wanted to do it, and so screw it. We did it. I don't think we toned it down very much either in that part of the movie. But if I was going to try and justify it beyond just I wanted to, I would say that it's all relegated. All the really horrific, gory, graphic violence is relegated to that portion of the movie because we don't see very much of it in the climax of the film. It's all off screen for the most part. And I think it's more palatable to see that kind of stuff played out in an exploitation horror movie within the movie than to actually see it played out with our characters. In the real life of the story.
I have to say the scene involving the gas mask in the climax of your film, you're seeing almost none of it. And it couldn't be any more powerful if you tried. In terms I think that's when I decided this was a great film. It had me all the time before it. You have a lot of great performances. You have a couple of performances that are akin to sometimes what happens on indie films, but still good. Still the better end of it, but then you have these amazing performances. Your 2 lead characters, the 2 kids, and they're not brothers. They absolutely seem like they are.
The hair.
So, and how much direction did you have to attribute to your 2 leads, the 2 brothers?
Well, first, I just want to say that whole cast worked for free. So for a cast that's just showing up all on their own,
it's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But it all really hinged on the 2 brothers, especially the main character, the little brother. And that was my biggest and most challenging job through the whole movie. And not because of him, who he is, it's just that he'd never acted before. And his mom and he were both upfront when we met them that he also has some attention deficit problems. So he has trouble focusing, which is not what you really want in a young actor. But, we had a good vibe about him. It was a leap of faith, and we decided to take it. And it really worked out. It was a challenge, but I could tell early on that he was willing to work to go the distance, to do what we needed him to do to make the film as good as it is. So it was worth investing in him.
And where can people find out more about your film now? Like, what's the best way for them to follow Found?
You can find us on foundmovie.net, and we're also on Facebook /foundmovie. So either one of those places is where we are constantly updating with all the latest news, like the day it happens.
Okay, 2 things. 1, you're a great filmmaker. I very much appreciated having you on your show. 2, cast me because I'm like out of work and stuff like that. So it'll be good. You know.
I might, because you're hilarious.
Thanks,
I love
man.
the whole Daffy Duck thing. You
What are
play
you talking
Daffy
about?
Duck
My Caesar
very
thing?
well.
It's not, I don't just do the Caesar thing. I do dramatic acting as well. De Niro, he's the hack. He's no me. So anyway, everybody follow Scott via the website. Track the movie down. It's not out for distribution yet, but it can guarantee probably within a year or so time you'll be able to find it on DVD and VOD as well. So it was wonderful having you in the program. Thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
You take care. And now is the time in radio that we take a commercial break.
Emergency. That was the racetrack. There's been an accident. Driver's been injured. He's coming in now.
Hello. I think the racetrack telephoned ahead that I was coming. Hunt. James Hunt. I had a friendly disagreement with another driver about his wife.
Why? What did he do?
I'd be happy to show you if you like.
James can be a loose cannon, but in terms of raw talent, there is no better driver in the world.
Why don't they make it safer?
Risk of death turns people on.
Who's that? It's Niki Lauda. He's just been signed by Ferrari.
I'm both quicker than you and better at setting up the car.
James Hunt is a proven winner at the highest level.
Is there a question, or are you just trying to piss me off?
This is an incredible battle between these two drivers.
I heard about this thing with Nikki.
Everyone has.
James, do you think you can cope with the pressure? To be a champion, you have to really believe it. You're just a party guy.
You're killing us out there. You're too far back.
I'm quicker than all of you.
And James Hunt is out.
It's over, superstar.
More powerful than even the fear of death itself is the will to win.
Which is why I'm here begging. You really think you can beat him? Trust me.
Today with the rain, it's the most dangerous trick in the world.
That all depends on how good you are in the rain. Let's race.
Talk to me, James.
Don't go to men who are willing to kill themselves, driving in circles looking for normality.
Niki Lauda, trapped in a searing inferno of 800 plus degrees.
I feel responsible for what happened.
Watching you win those races, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
The showdown between you and Nikki is all anyone wants to see.
And we're back here at Nerdgasm. I'm Peppercorn Montgomery, and still with me is Dave Campfield and Heather, who has a last name, I believe. Which is... All right, not important. What you just saw is the trailer for the new Ron Howard film Rush, starring our friend Chris Hemsworth. I assume he'd be my friend. Which is a true story. It's based on a true story. It's the story of the rivalry between Grand Prix drivers James Hunt and Niki Lauda, and about their intense competition during the 1976 season of Grand Prix. The story does a little background, but is essentially about that season of Grand Prix and the competition between the two of them, and really delves into Niki Lauda's accident where he's very badly burned, but against better judgment from his doctors and his wife, comes back and continues to race that year. This was my pick for review. It's not really a Nerdgasm genre pick, but I'm a huge fan of Ron Howard's work, going all the way back to his appearance on The Twilight Zone. So I felt that was enough of a reason to push for this film. If you are a race fan, this film is right up your alley. I mean, it's got intense scenes of racing, but also it has that nice Ron Howard story to it, where you get a nice piece to get to know the characters and their parallel stories, and it cuts back between the two of them throughout the whole film, and then it crosses when they come together on race day. I really enjoyed this film. I checked it out this week. There were parts of it that I felt the climax had a lot of great build-up, but didn't totally follow through. But I felt the performances were really strong, especially from Chris Hemsworth, who's most notably out there as Thor. But I thought he put up a good effort in this one, playing James Hunt, who's young guy who likes to drink, smoke, party, hook up with the hottest women he can find, and let's be honest, who doesn't like to do that? And the actor who played Niki Lauda, who I don't have his name with me, but you probably recognize from Inglourious Bastards. He puts up a really deep sort of undercurrent performance of a guy who's very German. I mean, his character is Austrian, actually, but he has that very German Austrian type of very rigid, business-like, by-the-numbers type of character, in stark contrast to Chris Hemsworth's character of James Hunt. It was an enjoyable film to watch. I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say, and then maybe we'll go a little deeper into it. Heather, what did you think of Rush?
I usually don't like movies, but I actually liked this one.
Oh.
I liked the characters, I like the German dude. I do agree with you. There was the climax was basically him. There was a big climax, a medium climax, and then there was nothing. And I don't want to give anything away with it.
I found myself rooting, I think, for the character not intended to be rooted for.
Which was the German Niki?
Yeah.
I liked Niki a lot too.
I felt it was sort of to root for both of them. I think that might have been kind of what hurts the climax in a way.
Yeah, you're divided, and I think the problem is the history of it. They have to stay true to the history of it, but at the same time, you can't change it to make it more convenient for the audience.
Sure, you can.
But there was an advantage. There was an advantage of not knowing, where this film was going, because I don't know about it. First of all, I don't care about race cars. I'm not a sports guy. I don't care about that stuff. But I love sports movies, if it's Rocky, if it's really character-based, and that's what this was. And there's a lot of times, where you are at the edge of your seat when you're watching the racing. Like race cars, as far as I'm concerned, that sport consists of just driving in circles. Yeah, I have no emotional impact.
Which they do make reference of.
Everyone basically watches it for the crashes.
So they say, but I don't follow any race car sports, but I do have friends who are big into NASCAR, and I have asked them the question of, what the heck is the point? It's people driving around in a circle, and they've explained to me that there's a lot more to it. I mean, getting back to, I think the climax is the biggest thing about the movie that sort of stands out as an area. And can you give a spoiler to a true story? I mean, you could go back and look up the record books and what really happened, but essentially it's you build up to this big moment of a guy coming in third. And, I think the biggest uplift moment is Niki Lauda fighting his way to get back on the racetrack. I think and then after that, it's sort of more of an extended denouement than anything else. And then even when there's the climax and what feels like the end of the movie, there's an additional scene which sort of wraps everything up. So it's an exciting movie. It definitely it starts off exciting. It keeps going with the excitement. There's short scenes where you get to know each driver and what their interaction with other characters are, but it's all about race day. Mm-hmm. And as a sports movie, it's a really solid film in that. I think.
Did you think one of the issues I have with this film? Chris Hemsworth does a great James Mason impression in this film, by the way. But I felt that he's kind of a jerk. I'm not sure how much I liked him. I like the guy that they don't want you to like in these movies. The German who just, he's working his ass off to do such things and I was rooting for that guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, you say you don't want people to like him, but why? He comes off as an asshole, but he's also incredibly honest in everything he says, even though it's very abrasive. He's honest.
And he's very confident. I think that's
which is good. But they're all confident. Even James Hunt was just a confident.
He was nothing but confidence.
But he was. Yeah, they were all confident.
I think they did. It wasn't blatant, but I think they did nice little aspects to show that he's not as a lot of his confidence is show. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing with the lighter, which they bring up a few times, and he's boasting and stuff. He's still clicking away at that thing under the table to show that he's not, that
as on top of things as he pretends to be, and which is true, which I appreciate. I felt like, we've all watched a lot of sports movies. I felt like this was one. It did feel pretty different. There was something about it that gave a whole. I feel like I hadn't seen this movie before. Yeah, that's possible. It could have been just a change of focus. So the film was definitely better than I thought. By the way, Hans Zimmer will not be happy until he has scored every big Hollywood film this is. Every big blockbuster, he's like, I'm in it. I'm the guy. Come to me. I want to do the music. And
someone has to pick up the reins from
John Williams, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, for years it was John Williams or Danny Elfman. That was your choice of who's
Danny
going to do it.
Elfman's not exactly retired. They sort of
No. I mean, he did Oz the Great and Powerful.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think it is time that we're going to put the Guess Who, the original Guess Who. Let's not reveal who it is yet. So I would like to go back to the original Guess photograph to see if the audience can figure out just who this is, because we're about to reveal it. So I want you to bring your game on.
Is it that plushie? Is it that guinea pig stuff down?
So this person is an actor who is featured in one of the movies that we're showing today.
James Cagney.
No, he would have been 90 at the time of this photograph and not 9.
He aged well.
Who is this, Heather? Let's have the reveal of who this actor really is. Is it Dave's mom? Okay, and here's the... Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it is Elijah Wood.
Is it?
That's right.
Yes.
I thought I would mess with Heather because she is such.
We're not friends. We're in a fight now.
Why?
You just messed with my head.
I know. I like doing that. You got a problem with me messing with your head, little Catwoman?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it is now, speaking of Elijah Wood, it is time that we go into our review, our second big review of the show, of The Hobbit. So without further ado, I would love to play the trailer to this feature, and we all discuss our thoughts on the film.
My dear Frodo, you asked me once if I had told you everything there was to know about my adventures. Well, I can honestly say I have told you the truth. I may not have told you all of it.
Bilbo Baggins. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
I can't just go running off into the blue. I am a Baggins. Wait! Of Bag End.
Bilbo, allow me to introduce Fili, Kili, Oin, Loin, Darlin, Balin, Biffa, Bofa, Bomba, Dori, Ori, and the leader of our company, Thorin Oakenshield.
Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, the pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the night, the fire was red, it flaming spread, the trees like torches blazed with light.
I cannot guarantee his safety.
Understood.
Nor will I be responsible for his fate.
You'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back.
Can you promise that I will come back?
No. And if you do, you will not be the same.
My name is Bilbo Baggins.
Bagginses. What is Bagginses? Precious.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. This was the film that I forced Heather to watch this week. Tim had seen it. I mean, Peppercorn. That's his real name. It says on his birth and on his driver's license, Peppercorn Montgomery.
Peppercorn.
It's really not Tim. And so the reason I brought this film up was because Heather is a huge Elijah Wood fan. And it's the only, and this is a totally nerdy film. So I want to hear this outsider in the movie's perspective. You're a reader. You're a comic book nerd. I want to hear what your thoughts were on this particular film.
I was confused as to why it started off as a musical, and then all of a sudden it wasn't a musical.
Okay, well, that's one issue that you might have with it. You know, I was watching the original Hobbit cartoon movie.
Which is a musical.
Right, and I noticed that I could have sworn that some of the music was the same, just like in a different tenor. Did they use music from the original 70s cartoon?
I don't know if they used the same music, but or if they used the same source for it. But there were, you know, I used to watch that Hobbit from that musical version of the Hobbit that was Rankin Bass, I think, did it originally, and I was a huge fan of that. And there were actually surprising moments that it was like, I don't know if it was intentional or they were just both were that dedicated to the source material that remind me of that movie. You know, the scene with the dishes and the singing and the dwarves, and there was throwbacks to that and stuff like that.
What did you think of the film, other than the change of tone, other than the musical thing, shift? I mean, you obviously had more thoughts than just the fact it changed genre.
Yes, I did enjoy it. I'm interested in watching the rest of them. There were parts of it where it did kind of, I mean, I generally don't have a good attention for watching movies, but there were parts of it where I just kind of lost my will to like watch, and I just started doing other things. No.
But that's how you would have felt during the original Lord of the Rings movies with your man Elijah Wood.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. Again, even though I love Elijah Woods, I haven't seen the entirety
Elijah
of
Wood, not Elijah Woods. Elijah Wood,
There
singular.
should be more than one of him.
The army of Elijah Woods.
You know who I really like? I like Dave Campfields.
And that's your new last name.
Okay, I'm Dave Campfields now. Campfields. So, I personally feel. How do you feel like this compared to? I might be slightly on the outside of this opinion, but I think if I was told I had to pick Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit as a movie to bring with me on a desert island, I might gravitate toward The Hobbit, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not the biggest fan of Lord of the Rings. I like it. I think it is a good film, and whether it's just the age that I discovered it, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So like Star Wars, like I could watch that film 1,000 times. Lord of the Rings, when I watched it, I'm like, I liked it. I never really want to watch this more than once or twice. This one I feel like is a little more, just for me, replayability. There's something about it that, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. I don't like Elijah Wood as Frodo, and Martin Freeman, blasphemy. Martin Freeman is as the lead as this character for me had much more. It was a lot more. It felt like a better match, and because he's the anchor of the film and he's the protagonist, it kept me with it a lot more. I mean, it's odd that you have like these talking monsters in this. It's like a much more of a whimsical kind of approach, which I'm not sure if I like that quite as much.
It's definitely to build off what you were saying about Lord of the Rings. I saw the original trilogy. I really liked the original trilogy, but of the 3 films of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the only one I'd ever rewatch is Two Towers, which doesn't even focus mainly on the Frodo character. But I think what you were saying is, and just to stick to the movies, because we could get off on the books and be lost forever. But as far as the movies go, The Hobbit is a much more hopeful, whimsical tale. It's a little more fantasy. It's Lord of the Rings is everything's doom and gloom, basically from the first moment, and then progresses on. The Hobbit it's really succinct to this band of people who are trying to get back their home. It's not World War. It's nothing like that. And I think also the Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins is just more, it's more character. There's more comedy to him. There's more likability. I think it's much more easy to relate to him. I think in the later books, the Pippin and Merry characters are there to sort of fill in what's lost from Bilbo to Frodo.
But I still like Martin Freeman better than the Pippin and Merry characters as well. I think that Freeman really carries
Martin
it.
Freeman is just a top-notch actor. I've loved. It's hard to see. I mean, he's great in The Office, which at the English Office was the first thing I've seen him in. I've seen him in a few movies. I love him as Watson in Sherlock, which, by the way, is coming back for all you Sherlock fans, and stuff like this. The Hobbit. I mean, just to jump to my quick review of it, it's a big film. Clearly, Peter Jackson put a lot of stuff in there. It's long, and it really takes its time to build the universe of Middle-earth. And I think people who are not there to be like, want to see every little inch of it, get lost. I know my brother, who's not a huge Lord of the Rings or Tolkien fan or anything else like that, found it to be excruciatingly boring.
Well, we could say the same. Your brother found one versus the other boring, or
no? Both.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, I think he's only
I
seen
do
one of the
understand
Lord
that.
of the Rings.
It's like, by the way, this was originally going to be 2 films, and they decided to make it into 3, not for integrity of plot, but
just to
also,
overstuff
can you
it.
honestly, can you justify making a 90,000-word novel into a trilogy, and it's not a marketing scheme? No, it is a marketing scheme.
Yeah. Oh, clearly.
Harry Potter, the last book was divided into 2.
But you can sort of
specifically
justify.
because they
it was a 1,000-page
You can kind of justify
book,
it, but it's also because they knew it was the end. They wanted to make as much money as possible.
More pages, more money.
One thing that bothered me about The Hobbit that I have to say, none of the main characters died. I hate that in like movies. Like it doesn't seem realistic. Like you know when you see that happening, that none of them died. Like you go into the rest of them going, all right, they're all going to live. Like if something bad happens,
It's not
like,
a
well, it
slasher
doesn't
movie.
matter because
but
it's
also,
not,
I mean, it's
not like
Friday
in a
the
slasher
13th.
movie. I prefer realism. Like in Rush,
Like
I was
Friday the 13th.
afraid that one of them was going to die.
But who
One
died?
was going to die. Someone was going to die.
Who died?
So is it?
Nobody died in Rush.
Exactly.
But she felt like there was
but
the
like
possibility.
because it was
that-
such realistic, I just you saw me. I was getting nervous at certain scenes because I thought one of them was going to die.
Yeah, actually, at one point in Rush, she ran out of the theater.
In a rush.
It was
terrible.
And it wasn't any of the dire car explosions. It was a medical procedure that made her go.
Oh well.
Yeah,
I'll be right back.
It was kind of gross. I kind of had to walk out.
Was it the lung vacuum?
Yes, it was.
Don't say
Can
it.
we
She
show?
might run out of
Let's throw a clip of that up.
What?
Throw a clip. That was
I had
rough to watch.
Everything else I was fine with, like all whatever gore was happening. I was like, cool.
But I think it was the issue not so much that no one died, was that you never
You didn't
felt
feel like they were
that there was a possibility of it.
Yes, I always thought that there was a possibility that one of them would, so it made me nervous. Like
Right.
with this kind of movie, halfway through, I was like, they're killing everything, and they're all totally fine. They're like
Right.
falling downstairs, and like things are landing on them, and
And
they're
they're
all
getting-
totally
yeah.
like okay. So I never
So
got that nervousness.
the suspense wasn't probably there. Yeah.
So we could really talk about The Hobbit for a few
As long as The
millennia
Hobbit
if we,
is.
if we really do. But it's a limited show that we're gonna have to move into our next segment, which is show and tell. And so all of us have come with an item on this program that we are going to display and talk about. And I would like to start with to my right, to my left, Jerry Harder. I mean, Tim Montgomery. I meant Peppercorn Montgomery.
We really shouldn't have smoked before the show.
Yeah, me smoked. I'm just being
Dave,
a jerk, that's all.
Claims he's clean, but it's all a lie, because I look nothing like Jerry. What I brought for show and tell, which is the segment we're doing.
Right.
I brought a comic book, because I thought we needed a change of pace. So I brought an old, it's not an old school, but it's from a while ago. Where am I holding it? Am I holding it good? Okay, groovy. This is a comic book. This is the Justice League. This is the Keith Giffen Justice League. When they reintroduced the series back in I believe it was the late 80s, shortly after the big Crisis thing, where Batman starts a whole new Justice League. And it's a team book. This is the trade paperback of the first 6 stories from that, the first 6 books in that series. It's this is one of my favorite comics for a reason. It's just incredibly funny. It has all the action that you want in a comic book, in a Justice League book especially. But just the character interactions, I mean, it really delves into the way, especially a character like Guy Gardner, if you're the Green Lantern Guy Gardner, if you're a fan of his, and how he would deal with Batman on a team, and introducing other characters, and sort of how they would deal with the world. It's not just about it's not just about punching things and blowing up and fighting big monsters. It's just about how they can't possibly get along with one another, and when you get that many egos in a room, things are going to go bad. So I decided to bring this out of my collection and show it off for a bit. It's also to since Justice League, as I've mentioned in previous installments, the DC world is trying to catch up with the Marvel world and put out a Justice League movie or build to a Justice League movie. Just a sort of hold this up and be like, this is a good thing to read and research before you go and make this movie. Please do your research before you make this movie. Okay. So that's it. It's Justice League: A New Beginning. It's trade paperback. You can still get it in stores. Stop by your local comic shop.
So now it is my turn, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to say bitches, but I'm not allowed to on this network.
You just.
I know, I did. Because that's kind of snarky of me. Okay, so this is my show and tell item. My friend Darren Miller is the star of Cesar Arenato's Deadly Xmas as the Santa Claus that is a threat to the whole community. Now, he's the lead singer of CKY, and since I've gotten to know him, he just continues to impress me as a human being, as a person. And upon the release of Carver City, the last album by CKY, he surprised me and put me in the special thanks. Of course, there's about 1,000 people in the special thanks that we got right here, but he listed me in there. That was Darren's thanks. He had a handful of people, and I think that was amazing. And he also did the same thing in his heavy metal album, the death metal album, from World Under Blood, which is the band that he's currently in. So he's a great musician. He's a great performer, actor, and I can't say enough good things about him. Now, Heather, what on earth did you bring and why?
I brought cupcakes.
I don't think
No,
that's
that doesn't
all.
count?
No, I think there's something else that you brought.
Unless you want to tell us about the cupcakes.
Yeah.
It's my birthday tomorrow, so I brought cupcakes, but no one's eating them except for my little gerbil. My little
Gerbil
plush,
is a guinea pig.
plush guinea pig.
I gotta mention why Heather brought this to me, because I lost my adorable little Daisy last week, and she heard me talking about it, and so she bought me her Furby. Is this a Furby?
It's just a little
This beanie
baby, I
ball?
believe.
Beanie balls.
Beanie balls.
That
Got
sounds
balls.
awful. Okay,
That's Pitchbook.
so until I'm able to fully recover from the loss of Piggyzilla, I'm gonna be savoring this a little
Put
bit.
that in the cage, pretend.
So what did you really bring?
So,
Speaking of animals.
Up until recently, I never had a heart, but now I have a heart. It's a bird heart. I found a dead bird. It literally died in front of me one day.
Murderer.
Didn't kill it. I didn't kill it, even though I'm a cat. I didn't kill the bird.
She did
but,
bring it home for the family.
And so it coughed up its heart?
Yeah, no, I put on gloves. I put it in a bag, then I put it in another bag, and then I went over to my friend Steve's house, and we got burritos and dissected it and cut out its heart. Took a while to find it because it's small and it doesn't really look like a heart. So what we had to do was look up what part the heart was, and we actually cut off its head at a certain point and tried to get the skull out, and we couldn't, so I buried it, and when I went back to dig it up, the skull was disintegrated, but I have the heart.
And this is when I realized...
That was her weekend.
This is what I realized when I realized that Heather and I are two very different people. I gotta be honest, when she was telling me this whole story, I was like, ah. And deep down I was thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with this girl.
I hope I never die in front of you.
Hey, she wants my skull.
You would need a slightly larger jar for my heart.
I would probably take as many of your organs as I possibly could.
That's delightful.
Right?
It's the sweetest thing anyone's ever said.
Are you an organ donor?
No.
Would you
For
like
that
to
reason,
be?
Not really. I'm good.
We have
thanks.
to revitalize the horror show and bring you back so we can
Yes.
talk about all of the twisted and macabre things that go through this cranium of yours. So this week, Tom Clancy passed on, and the most literate one of the bunch of us right here, although you're a good reader, Heather, as well, I would say is Tim, but I was wondering if you had some words to say about the passing of Tom Clancy and some of your thoughts on his work.
Well, I mean, just brief, for those of you who don't know Tom Clancy or know his work, of course, he's the man behind the Jack Ryan novels, The Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger. He's a really popular novelist throughout the world. And it's really sad. He was 66. He was only 66. I would imagine he probably would have still been banging out some top-notch novels, which have been translated into some really exciting films. I watch The Hunt for Red October every time it's on, and stuff like this. And it's a real shame. He'll be missed. Our heart goes out to, well, our actual heart, not the one in the jar, goes out to his family in this time. But for those of you who aren't familiar with John Clancy, go out and pick up his books. They're a great read just to sit back and enjoy. Watch his movies. I just listed a few. There's a few more. I think he also sponsored some video games too. But yeah, so rest in peace, Tom. We will still enjoy your works for years to come.
Now, there was something that, since I'm the new host of the show for this week, I asked him what he wanted to talk about in the course of the show, and he said he would like to talk about some of his closing thoughts on some of the summer movies. Now that summer is pretty much ended, why don't we talk about some of it? We can all talk a little bit about your closing thoughts on the summer.
My closing thoughts on the summer. First, before I begin this, I was going to do it at the top of the show, but I totally forgot. Special shout out to my sister. Today is her birthday. She's
birthday.
Happy
she is an
birthday.
age that I will not disclose. It's older than me, but not very old.
140.
140. I am only 135. Yes, but happy birthday. I hope you enjoy it. So I loaded up a whole bunch of movie posters from the summer, and we're just going to go through, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on each one. Feel free to shout them. And the first one we have up is Lee Daniels' The Butler. For those people who got tired of things blowing up, this is a nice little prestige piece. It gives you a moment just to think about how nice it is to be a black butler in the White House. And it had Oprah. So next up. The Bling Ring, because this is the movie people apparently wanted to see as a bunch of snotty rich kids stealing from celebrities. Sofia Coppola, you're a Coppola, man. You can do better. Next up. Despicable Me 2, because you can't have a summer unless you fill it with too many sequels. Just keeps going and going and going. But kids like it, and I guess that's a big deal. Next
I like
up.
it too.
You saw Despicable Me too?
I saw the first one, not the second one. I know.
Elysium. I missed out on this one, but which is a shame, but I'll definitely catch it on video because I watch everything Matt Damon does. Despite the restraining order, I still watch everything Matt Damon does. And he's got an exoskeleton, which, that's my thing. Fast and Furious 6, I mean, come on. Let's be honest. We'll watch Vin Diesel and The Rock do everything and anything. And there's fast cars in it. Oh my God. Bald men with big muscles and fast cars. I guess that's America's kink. Next up. Which one was next? The Getaway. Did everyone see this? No. No one saw this. It's another movie with fast cars, only it's got Selena Gomez and Ethan Hawke. And if you saw this, congratulations. You're in the minority. This was a disaster. Next up. The Great Gatsby, a remake of a remake of a remake of a book, starring our good friend Leonardo DiCaprio. This movie starts off really strong. If you're coked out of your mind, you'll love it. But then the second half gets really, really Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a great writer. Doesn't really translate to film. Baz Luhrmann, whatever his name is.
Strange choice of director.
Yes, just weird. Anyway, what do we have next? Grown Ups 2. The first one was terrible. Let's make a sequel just because Adam Sandler says so. I didn't see it, nor will I ever. Thank you. Next up.
After Earth.
After Earth. Here was our favorite bomb of the summer. You thought that it would be impossible to top Wild Wild West. No, Will Smith will not be stopped. He will throw his kid in your face.
I like Wild Wild West.
You did like Wild
Quiet,
Wild
Heather.
West.
He's talking.
Heather won't be back next week because of that. But no, you're allowed to lock with him. But next up we have Insidious 2. I didn't see the first one because I saw Poltergeist, and do I really need to go back to that? Haunted house movies, though, I guess are big. Sold a lot of tickets, though. What do we have next? Iron Man 3, my favorite movie of the summer. Maybe not my favorite movie. No, it was my favorite movie this summer. Listen, three-peats in threequels. What's the buzzword we're using? Robert Downey Jr., I could honestly watch him do his taxes or his laundry for hours. Sherlock Holmes, Tony Stark, whatever he's playing, hanging out with Zach Galifianakis, it's all good to me. This movie was the biggest moneymaker of this summer, and for obvious reasons. People who complain about this movie, I don't know what's wrong with you. But this gave you what you asked for, if you asked for a lot of Iron Mans flying around blowing stuff up. Next up, Jobs. It's the follow-up to The Butterfly Effect, a movie I didn't want to see but was forced to. The story of Steve Jobs, as portrayed by the brilliant actor Ashton Kutcher. This movie was brought to you by sarcasm and irony. Thank you very much. What else do we got? Kick-Ass 2. The first one was so good, and then they made a sequel, and then we all forgot to go see it. It's too bad. Jim Carrey apparently was in it, although he didn't promote it because there was violence in it. Maybe he should have thought of that when he read the script. Who knows? Next up. Man of Steel. Okay, this is a big dividing line movie. This sold a lot of tickets. I think it was the second biggest blockbuster after Iron Man 3. But some people liked it, some people loved it, some people couldn't stand it, and some people just went meh. I was in the meh camp. Honestly, the best way to judge this movie will be in 6 years from now after DC has tried to roll out its wannabe Marvel universe, only with the DC people. We'll see. Maybe this will be the start of something incredible, or maybe it will just be some weird, dark movie with a Superman-like guy. Once again, this is Christopher Nolan, though, so he always puts together a great cast, which covers up for some really weird plot holes. Next up, we have a movie that's actually based on my years at college, Munsters University. Yeah, this was a phenomenal sequel that they waited way too long to put out. So much so that I had to go rent Monsters, Inc. because I had forgot what the movie was about, aside from monsters, obviously. But the kids love it, and the stoned adults love it, so that's all good. But yeah, Monsters University. Check it out on video if you want to. It's your choice. Mortal Instruments. This is a movie that's trying to fill in for Twilight and the Harry Potters of the world. I didn't see it. I didn't really see a purpose to see it. It just seemed like a lot of serious, young, attractive people staring longly at each other. But it's about, apparently it's based on a book series, which is cool now. Anyway, what's up next? New plane. Disney planes. Because Cars was such a good movie, they decided to just take the exact same plot and put it into planes. Yeah. Disney, keep just hammering away there. What do we have next? Red 2, because Red 1 was actually a really awesome film. And I did see Red 2 and actually enjoyed it, although Bruce Willis kind of just seems like he's going through the motions. That was basically like his last performance in his Die Hard series. He just doesn't seem to be enjoying himself. The rest of the cast having a great time. There's a lot of humorous bits in it and action, but Bruce Willis, man, what happened? You just seem tired. Get some rest, buddy. Next up, The Heat. Can we all agree that Melissa McCarthy is now a movie star and a television star? This woman is incredibly funny. This movie was a big hit. Why? Because actually, women kind of want to see movies too. I know, it's weird, and they don't just want to see romantic comedies. I was surprised to learn this too, but an action comedy with a buddy cop film with two women, it was a hit, and everyone liked it. Make more. It's a good idea. I would much rather go on a date to that than have to watch another 10 ways to lose your lunch on your seat. Next up, Pacific Rim. Giant robots fighting giant monsters. Yes, thank you. I'll have another. Bring it on. Godzilla, I hope you're just as good. Next up, Percy Jackson. This is another sequel. Have we had enough sequels? How many sequels have I listed already? Percy Jackson and the Sea Monsters. Waited way too long after the first one. Just not as an exciting follow-up. Sorry, buddy. Although the book series is cool. Next up, R.I.P.D. The second biggest bomb of the summer. Ryan Reynolds, my good friend, you are a talented chap. You have got to do a good movie again soon, even accidentally. Maybe an independent film. Do something. Please stop doing movies like this. Jeff Bridges, also, you're a genius. Why did no one look at the script? I mean, it's like, yeah. Smurfs too. Because this is where America's at, people. People went to see Smurfs when it came out in the movie theater. It made a huge amount of money, so they made a sequel. Luckily, no one went to see the sequel, though. If you find someone who has, good for them. All right, here's my question for Star Trek Into Darkness. Is it Star Trek Into Darkness or Star Trek Into Darkness? I don't know. I couldn't see the movie because that bothered me too much. Plus, the totally whitewashed cast made to be more suitable to the white American audience. Other than that, it actually was a huge hit, and a lot of people really liked it. And a huge hit is weird to say around Star Trek that it was very mainstream. The problem with mainstream is that it's just paddling for the masses. Anyway, but you know, The Conjuring. This was a little movie, a little horror house movie that made it big. You got to give support to that. There was a few of these. You're Next, Insidious 2. I made fun of it, but still, Insidious 2, The Conjuring. These are mid-range budget horror movies that actually did really well in the box office, showing that maybe people don't want to see the massive budget movies anymore, or at least a horror movie that's not the same.
When are we done?
We're almost there. This was a big summer. The Hangover 3. All right, guys, let's get together and watch three talented guys spend an hour and a half beating a dead horse. Yeah, Hangover 3. Next up, The Lone Ranger. They told us not to see this, and no one did. What's next? The Purge. This was an interesting, this is like the Republican view of America if Obamacare is in. Yeah. All right. I think that's all we have on the list for now. Although there were more movies. The summer, it was a chock full of movies. There were actually a lot of good movies and worth things checking out. There was a F-ton of sequels out there too.
I got a question for one of our chatters right here. So someone was saying, what is it, cutie something? Do you just tune her or something like that? You're saying that I look uncomfortable or something like I'm not constipated or anything like that. So,
That you look
so
uncomfortable
elaborate.
without your shirt.
Without my shirt? Is that what you meant? That just in general I look uncomfortable, or I looked uncomfortable without my shirt? Cutie bumble. I gotta know. I gotta know.
You're getting obsessive.
I
Stop
know,
worrying
yeah,
what the chatter
I
feed says,
know,
but-
but this person's on a troll. This person's trying to give me credit, like legitimate. I'm not taking my shirt off.
That's
You take your
that's
shirt
legitimate criticism. He says
It's not
take your
really-
shirt off.
Without my shirt. Okay, that's better. Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, I just got some breaking horrible news. It appears that Jerry Horror, our beloved host, has in fact passed on to the great beyond. He was trying to save children from a burning church and pull them out one by one before the church collapsed on him. I went to visit him at the hospital, and he was lying there all charred and looked up to me and said, "Stay gold, pony boy." And I will stay gold, Jerry. I love you, man. And we're going to have a little tribute to you now that you passed on. And by no means will he be back next week because he's dead.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my needs. A lonely place to be, and so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow.
And that is it for this week's Nerdgasm. And Jerry might be resurrected by next week. I just have this strange feeling.
I do practice voodoo.
Right. So tune in next week and we'll see what's
I
happening.
just need his heart in a jar first.
That's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, look, it is time for the 4-hour sign-off.
Have a great night. I'm Peppercorn Montgomery. That's really loud.
I'm Dave Campfield. And
I'm a cat!
She's out of her mind is what she is. So we will see you next week, and thank you for tuning in.